A deputy is dead after he was shot in Charlotte County. This happened Sunday afternoon after a traffic stop in Charlotte Harbor. Andrew Mostyn allegedly pulled out a rifle and shot Deputy Corporal Elio Diaz. He was taken to the hospital where he died. They later found Mostyn near a Popeyes restaurant, and that's when they say the 24-year-old grabbed that rifle, tried to point it at those deputies, and then they shot him in the head, and he died at a hospital. So obviously a tough day for the law enforcement community in Southwest Florida.
And that's, when I know so many members of law enforcement are worried about those simple traffic stops all of a sudden turn into a violent altercation, this one turning deadly with this suspect pulling out that rifle. We don't know why he escalated the way that he did, do we?
No, and, we're still getting details about, how the whole incident went down and what the circumstances were behind the traffic stop. What happens in some of these cases is if these guys have a prior record,
exactly,
chances are they're going to jail because of the traffic stop, and some of them don't want to do that. But obviously in a situation like this, there was absolutely no need for that. And a rifle of all weapons, that's unusual too. And then, of course, in his attempt to get away is confronted by cops, and, they took him out.
Yeah.
Obviously, they weren't in a good frame of mind based on the death of one of their deputies. They weren't going to take any chances with a guy with a rifle.
And clearly he was willing to do, horrific things. He just killed a deputy, so he certainly wasn't going to, you would think going into that situation, he's probably not one that's going to just surrender.
Yeah, so didn't seem like that at all, and of course he paid the price.
Yep.
Luigi Mangione, the man suspected of killing the United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson last week, has hired a high-powered attorney and a former CNN legal analyst to represent him in his case. Mangione has retained Karen Friedman Agnifilo, a former federal prosecutor and a frequent guest on the cable news show. She will represent Mangione in New York. That's where he's been charged with second-degree murder. So the case in New York, which is, of course, the primary case, he's also facing charges in Pennsylvania.
And Dana reported earlier during her trending segment that she's married to a defense attorney who's representing Diddy, and he represented a lot of...
Yeah, he represented Harvey Weinstein. He what was the name of that cult? The NXI something. I don't know how to say it. Yeah, he represented one of the people who was accused of being involved in all the sex crimes with that cult.
Like an actress or something, I think, who was involved in
that. He represented them, and then she used to work in the sex crimes unit for the DA's office. And then she went to work for her husband, who was a prosecutor, and she had to recuse herself from, several of her cases because, how weird is that? Like, she's working in the sex crimes division, prosecuting those crimes, while her husband was defending the sex criminals.
Yeah, very powerful legal couple, it sounds like. And obviously, his family is ponying up big money to bring her in on this. I think there's no question about it.
Well, we've learned that it looks like the mother of Mangione was in contact with the FBI before his arrest, suggesting that she may have recognized him based on the surveillance video footage and other images. And so, we don't know exactly what her role is, but she may have had, a say in getting him caught.
And then a big story this morning, this is like on the front page of the New York Post, the founder of some socialist apparel brand, he is putting out like a deck of cards with the most wanted CEOs. He's got their names and faces and illustrations of gun range targets on them. Very similar to, remember during, I think it was the Iraq War, those cards that were given out for the most wanted people in the country. He's done something like that only for CEOs.
It's like a sick twist.
A very, very sick twist. And we've seen a couple of instances where you've got that. What was it? It was it was a construction sign in Seattle that had a warning for CEOs.
Yeah, they changed the sign. I can't remember exactly what it said, but
right.
It said something about the CEOs. Yeah.
Yeah.
Ryan, you were talking earlier about how unusual it is for people to glorify a cold-blooded killer.
Like this. Doesn't this seem like an extreme example lately? With the we were talking about the lookalike contest at the University of Florida.
Oh, yeah. Really. But it reminds me of the movie The Joker. that came out a few years ago. Not the recent one with the musical and all that stuff.
Yeah.
This was the first one. And if you remember in that movie, the guy who played the Joker was essentially a mentally deranged, sort of twisted guy who murdered several Wall Street executives in a subway.
Yeah.
And it became this glorifying event. He turned into this folk hero and sort of evolved into this not superhero, but villain hero.
Right.
And it was just sort of a sick look at how society can take such a horrible event, a series of murders, and then turn the murderer into a hero.
Yeah, and that feels like some of what's going on here with Luigi Mangione.
At home or on the road, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers keep winning. They beat the Chargers 40-17 in Los Angeles for their fourth straight win. Quarterback Baker Mayfield threw 4 TD passes, including 2 to wide receiver Mike Evans. And Tampa also set a franchise record with 222 yards rushing. You wouldn't know it based on all the passing touchdowns.
Oh, what a game. And the Chargers have a really good defense, too. So for the Bucs to put up 40 and to throw the ball like that, to run the ball like that, the stars showed up. Mayfield had a great game. Evans had an excellent game. Bucky Irving showed what he can do. I mean, they were really clicking on all cylinders. Defense stepped up and took it to the Chargers. So biggest game of the year, biggest win of the season for them. And they're in cruise control now. I mean, they've got the Cowboys. They play in Dallas on Sunday night. That's going to be probably the biggest game left on their schedule.
Never easy to do.
No, especially a Sunday night game. A lot of pressure there. But then they have the Panthers and the Saints to wrap things up. And if they win out, they get in. It's as simple as that. Now, the Dolphins, not as good of a story.
Yeah, they've lost 2 of 3. The Houston Texans forced 4 turnovers on the way to a 20-12 win over the Dolphins at NRG Stadium. Quarterback Tua Tagovailoa went 29 of 40, 196 yards, 1 TD, but had 3 picks and a fumble.
Yeah, just way, way too many turnovers during that game. It was the toughest game left on their schedule. It was a must-win. I mean, the Dolphins had to win every game going forward to have a chance at making the playoffs. They're not going to make it now. There will be a lot of questions about the coach and his future and all of that, whether they go back to the drawing board there or not. But what really stood out about that game was the really, really scary moment when Dolphins wide receiver Grant Dubose was taken off the field on a stretcher. It was a hit, and he went down. And, the Dolphins, sadly, they just have had a lot of these incidents. I mean, the multiple concussions for Tua, and then something like this. You can see the players were shaken up, so tough to come back from something like that. I mean, there was a really, really long pause in the game while they were handling this situation. The emergency responders, they had to cut DuBose's jersey off, and they had all this equipment and IV bags and everything as they were wheeling him off. It was a really scary situation.
Really the worst part of the NFL.
Yeah,
seeing players get hurt like that.
Yeah, he was taken to a hospital. Luckily, it sounds like he's going to be okay. He was in stable condition, all of that, but a really scary situation during the game yesterday. Chris Strankman with today's top stories. Chris, thanks so much.
Thank you.